Welcome to the Taylor Made Tasty podcast. I'm Taylor, retired serial quitter turned goal boss coach, speaker, and consultant. I believe a beautiful life starts with a beautiful mindset. Join me as we amplify confidence, resilience, and actionable tools on the road to quit quitting on you and your vision. You are worthy of your goals, so let's go get there. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Made Tasty, the podcast. Our special guest today is Erica Lester. Erica is a freedom success mentor for women, focusing on helping high-performing, high-achieving women calibrate their internal state to have more energy, joy, fulfillment, and presence, while still creating massive external success. She is a certified quantum healer and success coach, 2 times business builder, and an all-around champion for humans living lives that light them up from the inside out. Our conversation today is about identity recalibration, diving into the idea that there are infinite versions of us available to us at any time. We will discuss how to tap into the version of you that already has what you desire in order to access her confidence, clarity, commitment, and knowledge to create your dreams and start reinventing you. It's here! Taylor Made Tasty Method group coaching is officially open for enrollment. Start to control your chaos and shift to being in control by maximizing time management, activating goal commitment, and awakening consistency. We are going to create balance and prioritize yourself by learning the exact method that has helped 400 plus women push through their life plateau and implement lasting life changes. By the end of Control Your Chaos, you'll be able to confidently and consistently manage your work, wellness, personal development, and relationships with ease, and also have time and energy for events, catching up on your shows, and making yourself a priority without feeling guilty about what you could have done. Our 12-week session runs through most of summer and starts May 11th. Get more information on taylormadetasty.com/method and use code PODCAST for a special discount at checkout. Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Hi, Taylor. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yes, me too. Specifically because I identify as a person who is multi-passionate, as I say. So if I'm allowed to myself every day, I will have a new hobby or a new business or something happening. And so I am a lover of opportunities and creativity and expressing that in a variety of ways. And I know that is so relatable for so many people. And the reason I bring this up is because our conversation today is about the idea that there are infinite versions of ourselves, right? And so it's funny because my husband jokes that I have 17 personalities, but but I'm like, well, all of those personalities and versions of myself get shit done. So, but I would love to know, when you say there are infinite versions of ourselves, can you dig a little deeper into like what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think you have hacked the system already, which we're going to find as we get deeper into this conversation because you really hit the nail on the head. But what I mean by that is we as human beings think that that there is this our identity is who we are, right? And that we go through our life and we become this person, and that's just the person that we are. But the truth is that at our core, most of us are actually a much different version than we believe in our heads, or than we're showing to the world, or than we're showing up in action, because we're living under this construct or this identity, right? This identity that has been born out of our life experiences and maybe our self doubt or our feelings of unworthiness, or, maybe we had an interaction with some girl in the second grade that made us like fearful to be, our real selves. And so when I say that there are infinite versions of us available, it's because there are all of these different experiences and different possibilities that could have happened in our life. And I truly believe that we have access to all of those at any time. So if you hadn't had that interaction with that girl in the second grade, what would have been different about you or the way you felt about yourself or the way that you showed up in the world, right? And so it's those kinds of things that we get to actually shift and play with, because our identity is malleable, just like you were talking about, right? Identity isn't really who you are. It's who you're being in the moment based on the situation you're in, your life experiences, how you're feeling that day, what you had for dinner last night, right? Like there's all these factors that go into it.
Absolutely. So before we get into us tapping into that and what's available to us at all times, I do feel like, and I've heard this from clients and just in general, that when there's this concept of almost being two-faced, like as if you're being fake if you have a version of you in one lane and a different version of you in another lane. So what is, like, how, when you're looking at tapping into this, and I know we're going to get more into like how and why that matters, but um how do you kind of combat that feeling disingenuine in one, one way, or maybe that like concept of being two-faced?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is such a great question. So thank you for asking it, because I do, especially if you're in the online space, right? There's a lot of talk about authenticity. And I fully believe in authenticity. And I think authenticity really comes from integrity. And integrity comes from your intention behind the thing that you're doing, right? And I don't believe that any of us are the same person in every environment, right? So back when I had a corporate career and I had an IT project management business, I would put on certain clothes to go to work because it was expected in the corporate environment. Does that mean that's what I dressed like 24/7? No. I would go home and sit around in my sweats and a sweatshirt and listen to punk rock music, right? Did that mean I was being inauthentic? No, it just meant I was bringing the version of me that was most applicable to that environment, that was the person that was going to be respected in that environment, that I was going to be able to get stuff done. I was living by the mores of that environment as well. It didn't mean that I was being inauthentic. It just meant that that was work me. And when I'm at home me, there's a different version of me, right? And I think that's true no matter the situation you're in. So if we can kind of put aside this idea that we are one identity and there is one version of us, then it no longer is about being fake or being inauthentic. It's about who who could I be in this moment that would be the most valuable to the situation I am, or to the things I need to get done, or to the people that I'm around. Because really, we do that anyway. We just aren't consciously really thinking of it that way.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so you mentioned that tapping into this is available to us at all times, and you touched on a really good example with talking about work you and home you, and I think that one is super relatable. But can you give us maybe some other examples in your day to day that you would see a variety of versions of the same person?
Yeah, I think you nailed it in the beginning when you were talking about 17 U's inside of you, right? Because that really is kind of what it's like. It's like, first of all, it starts with the awareness of like, I have this ability, right? I don't necessarily have to walk into, picking my kids up from school or a PTA meeting with all of my baggage and all of my stress and all of my like get stuff done attitude that I might use at work, right? So it, to me, it really starts with an awareness, and it starts with an awareness of like, I actually have a choice in this moment of what me I really want to be. And like I said before, what would be the most valuable version of me, or the most applicable version of me to the situation I'm going into. So, for example, I'm going to use a one for my own life. So, I'm a coach, right? I coach and mentor women. And when I say I've had a argument with my husband, which doesn't happen very often, but let's say it did. It did happen earlier this week. So, and I'm off kilter, right? Like I'm upset, I don't feel like myself. I'm I just want to like hash it out with my husband and resolve this, but I have a client call coming up. Well, I'm not going to walk into that client call where I'm expected and desire to hold space for someone else through whatever they're going through, right? I'm not going to walk into that as the version of me that just got in a fight with my husband. I'm not. I'm going to take a minute, get my stuff together, maybe breathe into it and ask myself, who do I really need to show up as in this moment to do the best job I can, to be the best coach and mentor I can, and to really fully show up in this space for my client. And I'll do that for that call. And then when I get off of it, I'll take a moment, I'll breathe, I'll let, all of the stuff that happened in that call for that woman, I'll let that all go. And then I'll ask myself, okay, what's next, right? Like, do I want to go back and fight with my husband some more, right? Is that still the most pertinent thing? Or maybe I'm building something in my business, right? And so in this moment, I'm going to put on like my future self, who's the CEO of a multi 7-figure, 8-figure organization that's helping women around the world. In that moment, I'm going to tap into that version of me by thinking about and feeling her. And really, for me, it's really about getting into the heart space because I'm really a feeling creature. This piece can vary for people because it really depends on like what resonates for you and what gets you connected to that version of you. For some people, they're a lot more into like the logical pieces of like, okay, well, if I was that version of me, then I would, stand up straighter, or I would, hire myself an assistant or whatever. So it's really about understanding what it is for you. For me, I'm very good at feeling who I am in that body, in that person, and just making the conscious choice to connect with that version of you. Because the thing I want to make sure is really clear, this isn't about becoming someone you're not. It is about being more of who you are with intention, right? Choosing the things that are true about you and intentionally connecting to, tapping into, putting on those things that are actually already within you that are valuable to you in this moment.
So beautifully said. I love that. Just bringing it out a bit more.
Yeah.
Definitely. So now that we have this better concept of the infinite versions and how they work in practice, those were fantastic examples. Thank you. How would listeners actually go about, like, are there tips or tricks or just sort of helpful hacks, if you will, that will they can go about tapping into these different versions, and maybe they don't even know some of them exist, but empowering that action.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great question. So thank you. Yeah. So when we first start this work, it can feel weird, right? Because we just like if you've never done work like this before, and you're not naturally moving through this like these scenarios consciously, right? It can feel a little bit like dress up, right? It can feel a little bit like um, exploration, right? And so the first tip I would give is let it be playful. It's not supposed to be a heavy thing. It's not supposed to be hard, right? You're just really playing with the traits and the versions of you that are available to you. So have fun with it, right? Because anything we do in that playful energy, I believe, is a lot more effective. Plus, it's a lot more fun. So why not? So don't take it so seriously. Just play with it and understand that this is actually a natural ability you have. You've been doing it all along, maybe just not to the extent and to the awareness that we're now bringing to this. So it's already a natural ability you have, which means you can't screw it up, right? It it's going to work for you. You're going to get more comfortable with it. It's going to get easier and easier if you just keep playing with it. And then there are some aspects to this that are very helpful. And like I said, what works the best for one person may not work the best for the other because it just depends on the kind of person you are and what really like helps you get connected. So some of the things that can help are starting with the question and the awareness of like, well, what are the attributes or aspects or personality traits or actions that a version of me in this situation I would really like to have, right? So let's say this is probably a bad example to start with. I probably wouldn't start here, but I'm going to use this example anyway. Let's say you're going in for a job interview, right? There are aspects or traits about you as an individual that are going to make you better equipped to go into a job interview and feel comfortable and be able to articulate and be able to show up in the way that you want to show up and be really present for that, right? And so if we start with the question, what would be really helpful or supportive of me, or who would I be if I went in and nailed this interview? Then you'll start to get to an awareness of some of the things. Like maybe it's confidence. Maybe it's, relaxation isn't quite the right word, but, like a stillness about you, right? You'll start to hear things that would be really good for you to have in this situation. And as you're identifying those things, you'll notice that there's this like, well, how would that feel in my body is one way to do it, right? For like I told you, like I'm really a feeling person. So feeling it in my heart, feeling it in my body really is helpful. For some people, it's if I was that version, I would stand up straighter, like I was talking, right? Like you would stand up straighter with your shoulders back. Or maybe I would um, look directly in someone's eyes, right? So there would be these indicators to you. Here are the thoughts maybe that I would have, okay? And as you're starting to clarify this, then it's a matter of playing, not in the job interview, right? Don't wait till you get in there to try this on. But like as you're having this conversation, physically allowing yourself to actually be that person, right? And maybe you're walking back and forth across the room and your walk's a little different. Maybe you're repeating things in your mind, right? You're like reaffirming the thoughts that version of you has. Basically, all you're doing is trying on clothes, right? Which is why I said it's like dress up. You are practicing what it feels like to have that version of you basically driving your physical body, right? And as you do that and as you play with it, it becomes a lot more easier and a lot less methodical, a lot less, I'm doing these specific steps to do this, right? It just becomes a natural way where you naturally allow yourself to shift between the versions of you and show up in the way that you want to show up in that place.
Yes, I think you've just given permission to a lot of people to lean into that and play that dress up on one hand because they're like, well, I feel this, but I don't really know how to attach a word to it, or or am I allowed to be the person with the 17 personalities? So I think that's awesome. And then on the other hand, I think in some ways that this concept for some that maybe don't feel that multi-passionate or don't feel that different avenues that they can have in their personalities is that this concept could be overwhelming a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. That many people are stressed with the one life, right? The one life and the one person they are. And so, how can this concept in practice actually help alleviate some stress and some overwhelm
Yeah,
for those
absolutely.
people who are like, this is a this concept is foreign.
It's too much. Too much. No, I totally get
Yeah.
it. And what we've been talking about is situational. It's kind of what I call situational identity, right? Where you're being this version of you at different times throughout the day. But there is also the concept, and this is also work that I do, is like what identity at this stage in your life do you actually want to be, right? Like what version of you? Personal development is a huge, like multi-billion dollar industry, right? There are people all over the world trying to be better people, trying to be better versions of themselves. And you can take this concept and apply it to that versus doing what we've been talking about, which is more like situational. And that is like, okay, if I was the best version of me I could possibly be right now, who would that version of me be, right? What are the traits about her? Maybe she feels a lot more worthy than I feel right now, right? Maybe she has a lot more confidence in herself, or maybe she's, a lot more altruistic. Maybe she's, giving to causes she cares about and she's showing up in this way, or maybe she's doing work that matters to her. So it doesn't have to be something that you're shifting through every day consciously. It can actually be used to upgrade or expand into the person that you really want to be, that maybe you aren't quite there yet.
Definitely. Do you think that there's value in sort of maybe if you were to go through a day and journal, your day and how the version of you when you wake up and when you go through your morning routine, and are you the person that immediately grabs their phone, or are you stretching, and like all of these different things that you do throughout the day that have a version of you that you, like you mentioned, the work you and the home you, but there's a variety of different versions that can happen throughout the day, just to kind of get an idea of what is already happening with your versions, and then they can sort of move that into what their ideal best versions would look like.
Yeah, I think there's value in anything that brings awareness to what you're doing with your day and how you're feeling and what you're thinking. So, and I talk so much about awareness in the work that I do, because if we're not aware of something, how could we possibly change it or make it better or choose something different, right? There's no choice there. We're making a choice by default because we're not even paying attention to what's going on. So yeah, I think it's absolutely valuable, not only for a day, but over time, because one day you may be the person that wakes up and looks at your phone first thing in the morning, and the next day maybe you're not, right? The next day maybe you're like, I'm not doing that. I think it's valuable to look at, to practice that awareness and to be able to ask yourself questions, right? Like, is this really how I want my day to go? Or what did I feel like in that moment where I made this choice instead of that choice, right? What I think is can be tricky is if we start using that as an yet another weapon to tell ourselves we're not good enough. Look at me, I'm lazy, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. So it's really important to me that if you're going to take this and run with it, that you don't use it as yet another reason to tell yourself that you're not good enough as you are. Because I don't care if you're spending 6 hours a day in bed doing nothing. As far as I'm concerned, if that's all you've got today, that's fantastic, right? So any of these tools that we use, we need to use them in love versus, like I said, as weapons to tell ourselves that something's wrong with us, because there's not. And whether it's journaling, whether it's sitting at the end of your day and just reflecting back on your day and asking yourself questions, or, whatever practice it is that really gets you into that awareness and allows you to see the things that you would like to change, right? That you would like to improve or that you would like to switch out for something else, is super valuable.
Right, from a place of growth versus judgment,
Yes.
absolutely. And I think too, how it could be valuable is, let's say that same version of you is showing up all day long, and maybe that boss bitch version of you is showing up for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and then you notice that that same, maybe more aggressive, like type A, is still showing up at home, but you would like to, the best version of you that you envision is a little bit softer at home, and doesn't have to control every single aspect of it. So like you said, the self-awareness piece of being able to look at that, and decide how would I want to grow this version throughout the day into something that it does feel a little bit more me.
Yeah. I'm giggling over here because you basically just summed up the first 20 years of my adult life. I didn't know how to put it down at the end of the day. So I would come home in the same space that I was, running multi-million dollar projects at work. So yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, yes. Okay, so I believe that everyone is a patchwork of ideas and beliefs and histories, right? And it's only from the outside that we see a person as one thing. Typically, we put people in a box, right? We don't necessarily see these infinite versions from the outside. And I think it's beautiful that we get to decide when we sort of share part of that patchwork, if you will. Um, so when someone decides to lean into their infinite versions, how would someone deal with outside opinions from people maybe seeing this new side of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like probably the best question you've asked, because this is a real concern, right? It's like we as humans have a hard enough time interacting with people and worrying about what they're thinking, and taking on feedback that maybe isn't the best or whatever, right? So this is a really valid concern. And the best I can tell you, there's two things. One, something that really changed my life and gave me the permission to kind of play with this stuff was recognizing and realizing that people are doing the best they can with what they know at the time, and that people's opinions and people's feedback, whether it's real or imagined, comes from their own stuff, right? So if you are playing with this and you get someone who maybe says something that doesn't feel great, or calls you fake, or asks you who you are or whatever, right? Understand that has more to do with them than it does with you. And when we can really embrace that fact and understand that like I said, people are doing the best they can with what they know at the time, right? So it's not even necessarily that they're trying to hurt you, or that they really even feel the way of whatever they said or did. It's really just their own stuff they're working through. And when you can really embrace that and recognize that, it takes a lot of the pressure off doing things to please others, or doing things that you think will please others, or you think will make it more comfortable. Okay. Doesn't mean the words won't sting. Doesn't mean it won't suck if somebody calls you fake or says something awful to you, right? But at the end of the day, is their opinion of you more important than you living your most beautiful, fullest, lit up life? Because for me, it's not, right? For me, I care more about getting to the end of my life and looking back and going, you know what? I did everything I could while I was here. I didn't waste any more moments than I wasted, right? I did all of the things, most of the things, everything I could that I wanted to do. And that's what's worth it to me. So that's the driving factor for me. And then the second piece really is this idea that we are the permission slip of possibility for other people. And so much of our fear comes from thinking that we're going to be judged harshly, when in fact it's been my experience that I get way more positive feedback. People reaching out to me saying, "Thank you for sharing that," or "Thank you for doing that," or "You're such an inspiration to me," or all of these things, right, that are really very positive, way more than I ever get negative feedback. And what I've come to realize is that I am, by being all of me and being willing to move through the fear, because believe me, I'm still scared sometimes, right? I still have that moment of like, oh, do I really want to do this? I mean, I know that version of me would be that bold, but am I really ready to do that? What if somebody says this, or what if somebody does that? Or, I still have those thoughts. But every time I move through that and do the thing anyway, or show up in the way anyway, or, really allow myself to fully express in the way that I desire, the feedback is always thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for giving me permission. I was afraid to try that, and now I'm going to do this thing, right? So it's really like, can you be the permission slip of possibility for other people by moving through your own fear and actually letting them see you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so beautiful. And the ripple effect or the domino effect that would come from that, just trickling down from person to person to person, because you have been that for so many other people, and theoretically they have been that for other people. So I think
Yeah.
that's just like your little way to make the world a better place is living in your truth, right?
I honestly believe that's how we change the world. I mean, I think we try to make it this big thing, but I honestly believe that the more of us who live in our own truth and allow ourselves to live the lives we actually want, and to feel the way we want and to express the way we want, is really how we change this this world we're living in.
Absolutely agree. Yes. Okay, so we kind of touched on this may be a little bit overwhelming. So I want to break it down to, if you were to recommend one simple action to like take away from this episode, what could someone do today that would help them, recalibrate this identity or these versions of themselves?
Yeah. It's going to be one step, but I'm not saying it's easy. It's simple, maybe not easy, right? This is the point where you start saying yes to yourself. So as humans, we go through our life, right? And we have the thought of like, I want to do that thing, or I want to say that thing, or I want to try that, right? And then we let the fear stop us, right? We pull ourselves back from doing those things. I believe that little voice is actually the version of you that you came here to be, right? That's actually the version of you that would be living the life you truly want. And so I think if you're going to do one thing, start saying yes more to that little voice. Like I said, simple,
Beautiful.
not necessarily
Yes.
easy.
Right. That is a big big difference. So I like that you pointed that out. Okay, Erica, I would love for you to share about your business and how listeners can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, it depends on the day what title I give myself. Today I really like the title Reinvention Coach, right? Like I help women reinvent into this version of themselves that they're really here to be. And for me, it's about women living lit up lives, living lit up lives, living to their fullest potential in life, in love, in business, all the good things. So my business really is built around this identity recalibration and giving yourself full permission to be who you're meant to be. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, some time on Facebook. So you can come find me over there for sure. I love to chat. And then I don't know if I sent you this or not, but I have an identity recalibration guide that you can get as a freebie that can walk you through some actual steps that you can get like in a PDF so that you can start taking those steps and really start making those moves. So it's something I'm deeply passionate about and deeply in love with.
Fantastic. And what is your Instagram?
It's Erica, ERICA .J.Lester.
Perfect. So everyone go follow her, because I am just thankful for this conversation. Like you said, that permission, right? To tap into those infinite versions of us available at any time. And by tapping into that, we are looking at elevated confidence and more clarity and more commitment and just like the knowledge to create our dreams. So I thank you for being with us today and for sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me. This was a fantastic conversation.
All right, y'all. It is time for the quote of the episode. This quote is from Nicole Williams. And the quote is, "Every morning we get a chance to be different, a chance to change, a chance to be better. Your past is your past. Leave it there. Get on with the future part, honey." I empower you to access your confidence, clarity, commitment, and knowledge to create your dreams. Take that into your week, your month, maybe even your year, and start reinventing you as you see fit. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my community. I'm so glad you showed up today, and let's go get there. Look at you, crushing it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tailor Made Tasty podcast. My hope is you always leave with a takeaway to implement in your own goal-crushing journey. I would love if you could take a moment to leave a review. And if you're looking for a community of goal boss badasses just like you, be sure to check out tailormadetasty.com/membership.